everybody. Thanks so much for joining our webinar here. And I'm with Lisa Odom. I'm going to let her introduce herself to you and tell you about what she does. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for popping on and talking to us about Prop 19 and other things today. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm delighted to be here. Proposition 19 has definitely been something that's impacted our practice every single day since it was enacted. I'm an attorney that's based in Valencia, California, and I'm licensed though in the entire state. And I do business, real estate, and estate planning, trust administration law. So I handle and navigate any issues pertaining to business or real estate on the one side, and then estate planning and trust administration issues on the other side. And interestingly, Prop 19 crosses both. So it's a perfect thing for me to discuss with everyone today.
And thank you. That's exactly why I wanted you here, because I knew you are the expert in this field in all fronts, but especially because Prop 19 affects both sides. It's perfect for you to come here and kind of demystify it just a little bit, maybe simplify it. We won't get into the weeds, but just so people know a little bit about the basics. And obviously, if they have a need, you are the person to help them out with that. And we'll talk about your contact information and how to get a hold of you later.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, cool. So in a nutshell, what is Proposition 19?
So Proposition 19 was enacted in November when we voted on the propositions. That was during the presidential race. And Proposition 19 basically changes the way that taxation on property tax is calculated for certain individuals. Mm-hmm. So it serves two purposes, but the purpose that we're going to talk about today is in regards to buying and selling transactions involving real estate by certain classes of people. And what Proposition 19 did was make that property tax base that you have on a house when you purchase it. So let's say you purchased a home in 1980, mm-hmm. and now let's say you bought a 4,000 square foot home in 1980. And now you're in your 60s and you're ready to downsize. 4,000 square feet is way too much now for you. You're able to move your property tax base from your 1980s home to your new home that you want to downsize to and preserve that tax base, even though the value of the property has gone substantially up since then.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, but that was as part of Prop 13 back a while ago. There was that ability for people to move one time, right? They can move their tax base over, but I know that there was limitations on that have been changed, right? So what are the limitations from that proposition from 13 to 19 in this specific case?
So one of the limitations was that you could only do it one time. That mm-hmm. was one issue. Now Proposition 19 will allow you to do it up to 3 times per spouse. And exactly how that works is not totally clear yet. Whereas a lot of the regulations are still developing, but mm-hmm. each spouse is entitled to 3 Prop 19 transfers. So how it works when you're a married couple transferring, we're still vetting all that out because of course the law just became effective today. So it's going to be developing. But so that's probably one of the primary changes. The other change has to do with the value. There used to be some valuation requirements that are no longer there. So now you can either buy something that's far more expensive or far less expensive. Some of the counties, I believe, and don't quote me on this because it's been a while since I had looked at it. Obviously, I'm looking at the new law, right. But there were some limitations on where you could move it. It had to be a county that had that like reciprocity, or it had to be within the same county. There was some very unique rules to it. Frankly, very few people used it prior. Now, Prop 19 is going to make it widely usable by a lot of different people because it allows the flexibility to go anywhere in the state. Right. With any value. So if I had my 1980s house that was worth $100,000 and I'm going to buy a $700,000 downsized home, which I know is crazy, but alas, California property values.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be in LA County. I could go to Ventura County. I could go to another county, even though my house might have originally been in LA. So that's a pretty huge change too.
Right. And I think that that's one of the most important reasons to bring it to people's attention. What it did was, like you said, back then, I know that it was limited county to county, that you could only go from, you were limited. And now you can go anywhere in California, like you said, if you want to just downsize in the city that you might be in and love already, or maybe your children have moved to another area, they're adults, or they're, out of the house and you want to completely go to the beach now, like you said, in Ventura, you're not limited anymore. So it opens up a whole new opportunity for those people.
It really does. And I mean, this is kind of where it has the interplay with what happens also after you die, because it really, like, you can, like, for instance, like you said, you can move closer to a child that maybe doesn't live in the area anymore. And maybe now you can leave that house to them, and they can also potentially benefit in the future from the parent-child exclusion if they want to take that property and live there later. And you actually got to live there, close to the time when for a period while they were also there. And there's just so much flexibility in what you can do as a senior, or because obviously Prop 19 only applies to certain groups of people. It doesn't apply to everyone. But for seniors over the age of 55, for severely disabled persons, or for victims of wildfire or other natural disasters, that benefit will be there for them. So it can be a hugely beneficial thing for people who want to be able to move, but had previously hesitated to move closer to family or whatever, because they were afraid of losing that property tax base. Because frankly, 1.9% of 100,000 versus 1.9% of 800
million or
a million is a big difference, and it's a huge benefit to these particular groups of people. And it was definitely supported by the California Association of Realtors. It was designed to encourage sales. I mean, I think anybody who's a buyer right now probably should be thanking their lucky stars for this, because I think they're all hoping that this will generate some inventory of real estate, because inventory has also been so tight. I think I read someone's Facebook page the other day that said they had 40 offers on a property. I was like, I can't even imagine what you guys are doing right now as realtors. It's crazy. So
yeah, well, and that's thank you for saying that, because that's exactly one of the reasons why it's important to me to bring new information to my clients. And my family and my friends and everybody that I know, because, I eat, breathe, sleep, drink real estate, because, I've been selling for 20 years in Santa Clarita, and it's what I do. But I know that that's not everybody. And there may be people who have thought, well, I would move, I would sell, I would go to X, except for, and then the limitation which proposition may have removed for them. So definitely this is something to explore if you're somebody who could benefit by this, because like you just shared, it's not even just somebody, people who are over the age of, did you say it's 55, right? 55, which is not that old, because I'm
not at all.
Like I'm nearing that age. That sounds crazy to me. But also people affected by the wildfires or any natural disasters, which, I mean, goodness gracious, has been a lot of people.
It has been a lot of people, especially with the fires. I mean, California, our vegetation is like a matchstick at certain times of the year. So losses that are associated. I mean, it's a pretty substantial loss. Like, it has to be over 50% of the property. But if you have a pretty substantial loss or a pretty substantial diminution in value, you can qualify under the Prop 19, which I think is great, because I mean, also if your house is destroyed and you didn't have enough insurance, or the area was ruined by virtue of the brush fire, or you're scared to be in that area because of the brush fire, now if you want to sell and go to a different area where you feel safer, or where you can get something that, makes sense for you at this point, this enables you to keep that base, because you weren't actually intending to sell originally, but for this natural disaster. So it's a really fair way of addressing that particular issue. obviously it impacts less people because there's not as many people who lose 50% of their house because of course our amazing firefighters work so hard to try to preserve property and life, but occasionally they can't because the fire is too strong or fast. So I think the law could be potentially beneficial in so many ways.
But I think that you made a really good point, which is saying, you know, one of the things that you said is that the people who were affected by those wildfires, maybe their structure wasn't affected, and yet they live in an area now that they may be a little bit nervous to stay in, would move, but they don't want to use that used to be a one-time move until they were really ready or decided what they want to do. With this, it kind of frees them up to actually make the move if they're in the age bracket, of course.
Only if they're in the age bracket.
Sure.
The thing about this is that I could be, you know, I'm not 55 yet. And if I had a situation where my home was destroyed by a brush fire, I would also be able to use it to my benefit, even though I don't meet the age mark, which I think, I mean, you know, I think anybody who has any compassion can say, if you've lost everything in your home, it's scary. I, as someone who's been evacuated 3 times, it's terrifying to be evacuated. So even though I tell myself it's just stuff, it's not that big of a deal, it doesn't matter. It's your home. Right. So the fact that somebody can say, okay, that sucks. My house was destroyed. And now in order for me to buy a new house that's exactly the same, it's going to cost me, I don't know, $300,000 more because the property values have gone up so much. But that notwithstanding, I can at least keep my property tax base, which will help me make the home a little bit more affordable. So that's the good news.
Okay, so let's give an example of this. So a homeowner who's over the age of 55 sells a primary residence that he purchased for $200,000. His tax base is on the $200,000. That house is sold for $700,000 on May 1st of 2021. So now he purchases a new home for $700,000, right? So what would be the tax base he gets to keep the $200,000 tax base?
That's correct. So here's what would happen. How the county is going to look at it is they're going to take the purchase price of your new property, your replacement primary residence. So it does have to be a primary residence, just to really hone that in.
Very important. Mm-hmm.
And so for people who are filling out the forms, any of us who've ever purchased a home know that there's a homeowner's exemption. I think it's $7,000 that you get off your property tax base if it's your primary residence. So the home in which you select is your primary residence. Mm-hmm. That home you would take the new purchase value minus the sales price of your prior residence. So not what you paid for it. So not the 200. So in this case, in your example, it's 700,000 minus 700,000. So that's equal to 0.
Right.
So then you have your original tax base of 200,000 plus 0 because that's the difference. So your new tax base is 200,000.
Got it. Okay.
Whatsoever, even though you bought a house that was $500,000 more expensive.
Right. Okay. So in another example, we take the same homeowner who sells a primary residence that he purchased for $200,000 with a tax basis of $200,000. He sells that property for $700,000 now, right? Mm-hmm. But the property that he buys is, say, $800,000. Sure. Then what happens?
So in that instance, you'll do $800,000 because that's the purchase price of his new home. Mm-hmm. Minus the sale price of his prior home, which was $700,000. So we have a net difference of $100,000. You then add $100,000 to the original tax base of $200,000, mm-hmm. and your new tax base is $300,000. So awesome. It's still a substantial savings, still the $500,000 protection you basically are getting by virtue of Prop 19.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounded to me earlier, it was like kind of complicated with different things, but when you put it in to an example like that, mm-hmm. it's actually very simple.
It really is pretty simple. I mean, as long as you're meeting the threshold requirements, mm-hmm. it's pretty simple. You do have to secure the new suitable replacement residence within 2 years.
That was my next question. Is there a time frame when you have to close from one escrow to your new escrow?
There is. So you definitely have to do it within 2 years. And I'm a little fuzzy on how it's going to work. Like, let's say that you purchased a new primary residence in February of 2021, but you sold your original primary residence on April 30th of 2021. I'm pretty sure you can still get the benefit. You have to fill out the right forms, but all of this law is still being developed. But I'm pretty confident that you can get it, even if that situation arises. You know, like in the case of new construction, for instance.
Sure.
There is obviously still a lot of new construction in California. So the benefit could be pretty substantial. Of course, you can't quote me on that because I haven't been able to look at all the forms and regulations, but I'm pretty confident that you can even get it in that scenario. So someone who maybe was like, well, I'm just going to keep my primary residence and just rent it out, and I'm going to buy a new residence. Well, now all of a sudden, maybe it makes sense to sell that original primary residence because there might still be a chance of getting that basis. That's obviously something that they would want to consult with their tax professional and or their lawyer to make sure, because again, the law has, unfortunately, it was passed in November. It was effective February 16th. And this part of the law is literally effective today. April 1st. So it's all, kind of developing still, but I'm pretty confident that the benefit is still there in that context as well. So so there's some great things that are facing our seniors, our severely disabled, and then also our victims of wildfire or other natural disasters.
Right. So you said something also that I want to make a point of, which is filling out the proper paperwork. So I know that there are, once you do this, in order to have it benefit you, you actually have to go and let someone know.
Correct.
That you've done it. It's not just automatic because you've done this. You actually have to file some paperwork, correct?
Correct. So the Board of Equalization, the California Board of Equalization, is the one that has those forms. We often call it the BOE. Okay. So I believe it's BOE Form. I want to say it's BOE Form D. Hold on one second. 19. It is BOE Form 19. Let me tell you the exact form for people over the age of 55. Unfortunately, like I said, everything is just literally coming up as we speak. So it's hard to, so BOE 19B is the correct form.
Right.
So that's the form for your people who are over 55 or 55 or older. There's different, all the BOE 19 forms relate to Prop 19 for the most part. So if anybody just looks at BOE 19, they should be able to find it on Google.
Got it.
So.
Okay, great. Well, is there anything else that we need to know about Proposition 19 that we haven't covered in terms of buying and selling a property?
In terms of buying and selling a property? No, I mean, I think that there's a lot of strategy that can be used here. And I think it does provide a really awesome and unique opportunity to make some changes. I mean, I think with COVID, everybody is ready to make some changes. And I mean, I think that's probably the thing I'm hearing the most. I can't tell you how many clients that I talked to who moved out of the area or who left the state. There's just been a lot of movement. And I think, being home for all those months and not being able to go to restaurants and not being able to go to events, it caused us to think about our lives. And so here's an opportunity for people who maybe didn't get to see their kids for 365 days. I mean, I had a girlfriend of mine posted on her Facebook page that she hadn't seen her dad for 459 days because of COVID. So, I mean, all of a sudden, if your kids were far away and the pandemic hit and you hadn't seen them, maybe now you want to move by them. Like, life is short. You only get to live in this world once. So why, if the reason that you're withholding is because you're like, well, I have this $100,000 tax base and I can't afford to move somewhere else. Well, now the opportunity is there, especially if you own your house outright. Your value is probably way up and you get to move this tax base. I mean, I don't think you could ask for a better set of circumstances currently.
Absolutely.
So I say it provides a unique strategy that can be implemented to really get people to the goals that they have in life, right, and not to be stuck in a place they don't want to be anymore.
Right. And shameless plug, if you want to create a strategy around selling your house, I would love to meet with you. Lisa, if anybody has questions in regards to how they would like take title or work their property into a trust, or, to get their home situated and settled and get some advice on maybe what they could and couldn't do, how can they reach you?
So they could call me. I'm an attorney at Poole Shaffery Koegle. The number is 661-290-2991, or they could email me at lodom@pooleshaffery.com.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. And I know that there are, so many people who just don't know what to do. So they decide that they don't want to do it. I know from experience, I've known you for many years, how simple you make things. You've done work for me, and I know that, I don't like the legal, I love my contracts and do stuff on my side. But when it comes to my own personal business, I completely put that in your hands. And I appreciate you so much. And thank you for giving this information to people and being accessible for them to come and ask you questions. I really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much for thinking of me. And if I can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. Or if they reach out to you and you need some assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. You know where to find me.
I do. All right. Well, thanks very much. And we'll talk again very soon, because I know that we're going to have more topics that affect homeowners that you can help me work through.
Absolutely. I would be delighted to.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.